Okay, so imagine this. You land your absolute dream job, right? The company everyone's talking about, changing the world, all that stuff. You walk in day one, totally psyched, ready to go, and bam, everything's just different. Not what you expected at all, like right from minute one.
Yeah, it's that classic fish out of water feeling, but
Yeah.
like magnified times 1,000 because we were talking about Facebook, you know?
Exactly. And that's really where we're diving in today. We're going inside Facebook back in 2011, seeing it through the eyes of someone new, someone hired for policy work. Our mission here is to really unpack the culture clashes, the sort of weird realities, and just that struggle to figure out what it all meant inside this massive tech company.
Yeah, and our main source here is this fantastic first-person account, someone who came from the world of diplomacy, like embassies and protocol.
Super formal.
Totally. And they land in Facebook's Washington, D.C. office. So it's this unique perspective, seeing Silicon Valley tech culture, but through that diplomatic lens, and in D.C. no less.
So what we're going to uncover is how this company, the one whose mission was make the world more open and connected, how it dealt with its own contradictions, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll look at how policy actually got made, or sometimes didn't. And what working there was really like beyond the free snacks and stuff. It's going to be quite a trip.
It really is. And the culture shock hit literally on day one, July 5th, 2011. Our source shows up expecting, a computer on their desk.
Standard stuff, yeah.
Right. But nope. Turns out you were supposed to bring the laptop they gave you during orientation back in California, your personal work laptop.
Oh, awkward. So they didn't have it.
They didn't have it. And then trying to explain this to a colleague, it's a laptop for a home. And the colleague's just baffled. Like, why would we give you a laptop for your house?
Oh, you could just feel the cringe.
Yeah.
It shows instantly how different these worlds are, doesn't it? Just fundamentally misaligned from the get-go.
Totally. And think about their last job, the New Zealand embassy. Get this. Staff didn't even have internet at their desks.
What? No internet?
Nope. Officially, security concerns. But our source kind of suspected it might just be, incompetence.
Wow. So going from no internet to needing your homework laptop on day one, that's quite the leap.
Huge leap. And it wasn't just the tech setup, the actual office, the look and feel of it. That was another shock.
Okay, tell me about that. What was the DC office like?
Picture this. Exposed pipes, air ducts everywhere, raw concrete walls, kind of garish paint, even fake graffiti.
Fake graffiti, seriously?
Seriously. And our source is thinking, okay, maybe this works in Silicon Valley, but in this fancy DC building, looking out at these plush law firms, it just felt, quote, ridiculous.
Yeah, I can see that. It's trying maybe a bit too hard to be edgy.
Maybe. And it leads to this amazing moment with a German delegation visiting. They see the exposed pipes and graffiti, and they're like, is this a code violation?
Oh, no. Not the intended reaction, I bet.
Definitely not. They thought Facebook had, deliberately dismantled a proper office to make it look unfinished. Reckless, even.
And the explanation that it's meant to show Facebook is only 1% finished. Part of the journey.
That just didn't fly.
Not with the Germans, no. You could practically hear the silence. It really highlights this huge gap in perception, right? Facebook sees itself one-way disruptive, always building.
But others, especially from more traditional backgrounds, just see chaos or maybe immaturity.
Exactly, a fundamental disconnect. And this wasn't just about aesthetics. The real currency at Facebook, beyond the free food, was, two things. Unbelievable wealth and just relentless stamina.
Okay, let's talk wealth first. How did that work?
The key thing our source noticed was that wealth wasn't about your job title. It was about when you joined, tenure.
So, an assistant who joined early could be richer than their boss.
Vastly richer, potentially. Because of stock options they got before the IPO, before the company went public, and the stock value exploded.
Wow, that must have created a really strange dynamic.
Totally. Our source had no frame of reference. They mentioned an assistant wearing Christian Louboutins, those red-soled shoes.
Oh, yeah, pricey. And the assistant literally says, "Sweetie, you'll never be able to afford a pair like these."
Ouch. Okay, any other examples?
Yeah, engagement rings so big they looked hard to type with. People carrying matching Louis Vuitton bags worth thousands. A product director calling himself price insensitive.
Meaning he just didn't care what things cost.
Exactly. And another person, an ex-Googler, who basically said her Facebook salary was meaningless because she was already so wealthy. She called herself an economic volunteer.
An economic volunteer. That's something else. So how did this affect things day to day? Did it change how people work together?
It definitely created a unique kind of hierarchy. The old guard, the pre-IPO folks, had this immense financial and social clout, regardless of their official position. It sort of upended traditional corporate status symbols.
Okay, so that's the wealth part. What about their relentless stamina?
Yeah. The workload was described as punishing. There was this huge valorization of just pure effort, productivity, sacrificing everything.
With long hours.
Insane hours. The source mentions their boss, Marn, having the Stakhanovite work ethic that's like Soviet-era super productivity, working till the wee hours, up before 5 a.m., barely eating.
And was that expected of everyone?
Pretty much. Our source found themselves working from 5 a.m. until 1 a.m. sometimes, just making sure they were available, answering emails. You were expected to adapt.
So the famous Facebook perks, the food, the laundry, that wasn't just about being nice.
Not according to Mark Zuckerberg's little red book, this booklet every employee got. It explicitly said the perks weren't free, they were utilitarian.
Utilitarian, meaning tools.
Tools to help employees focus on our long-term goals, keep you at the office, keep you working. The philosophy was even that keeping people overloaded prevented trouble and territoriality. Keep them busy, basically.
Wow, that's a specific management theory.
Yeah.
And this little red book, was it actually like Mao's?
Well, the comparison was definitely there. It was filled with Zuckerberg's quotes, his principles, stuff like, Facebook was built to accomplish a social mission, to make the world more open and connected.
Right, the mission statement.
Exactly. And it told employees, changing how people communicate will always change the world. We expect you to change the world. Not just work for some company, but change the world.
That's a heavy expectation. Did people buy into it? Did our source?
Initially, yes, absolutely. Our source felt privileged, loved the intensity, genuinely believed Facebook was a force for good. They bought into the whole Facebook family idea. It created this incredibly strong culture of loyalty and, well, intense effort.
Okay, so our source arrives, full of this optimism, believing in the mission, ready to change the world. How does that crash into the reality of trying to make policy at Facebook?
Well, the vision was grand, right? Sitting down with governments, figuring out the rules of the road for social media stuff affecting elections, privacy, free speech, taxes, huge issues.
Yeah, defining the future, basically.
Kind of. The first big idea was this global council of experts to advise Facebook on political stuff.
Makes sense. Get outside perspective.
You'd think. But it got shot down almost immediately. The response was basically, nope, we make the decisions here.
So much for collaboration.
Exactly. It was a very clear, very early message. Decisions are made internally, full stop.
And didn't you mention Zuckerberg himself wasn't that into politics?
Yeah, apparently his disregard for politics was almost a point of pride within the company, which our source found incredibly strange.
Because he built this massive political tool, right?
Precisely. One of the world's all-time greatest political tools, as the source puts it. So if the guy at the very top isn't interested in the political impact, what does that mean for someone hired specifically to handle policy and politics?
It feels like your whole job is maybe undermined from the start.
It definitely creates a fundamental tension. It shows that, for Zuckerberg at least, the focus was overwhelmingly on the engineering, the product. Politics was maybe seen as a distraction, an annoyance.
And this plays out really clearly during a specific visit, right? The New Zealand Prime Minister.
Oh, absolutely. Prime Minister John Key visits. Our source, coming from diplomacy, naturally assumes, okay, the head of government visits, he meets the CEO, standard practice.
Makes sense.
But nope, word comes down. Mark has no interest. Policy and politics, that's Sheryl Sandberg's area.
Sheryl Sandberg, the COO at the time. Okay.
Right. So then begins this awkward diplomatic shuffle to get anyone senior to meet the PM. Sheryl kind of agrees, but only to drop by. The official host is meant to be Elliot Schrage, another exec.
So they were already managing appearances carefully.
Very carefully. And our source tries to help, explaining that New Zealanders are pretty informal. Tells a story about a former PM just hopping in a cab, no big motorcade.
Trying to lower expectations, maybe.
Yeah, manage the culture clash. But the Facebook execs, especially Debbie Frost, the comms director, were just incredulous, cynical even. Frost apparently deadpanned. Should we expect this prime minister to show up on foot or maybe a bike?
Oof, a bit dismissive.
Definitely highlights how Facebook saw itself, its own importance relative to, a head of state.
Yeah. So the day of the visit arrives. Does the PM show up on a bike?
Not quite. He arrives in a massive motorcade, armored vans, tons of California Highway Patrol motorcycles. The works.
Oh, the irony.
Totally. And Debbie Frost turns to our source and says, completely deadpan, maybe the prime minister left his bike at home today.
Okay, that's kind of funny, actually.
It is. But then it gets more awkward. The PM spots our source, knows their sister is a TV reporter back home, asks about her, mentions their shared hometown.
Just making a personal connection, like politicians do.
Right. But it totally throws off the Facebook comms people who are trying to do the formal introductions. It's this moment where traditional politics just bulldozes the corporate script.
And then the Mark Zuckerberg encounter happens.
Yes, Zuckerberg emerges. Our source describes him looking kind of small, pale, and very, very angry, agitated by the whole circus, the security, the entourage.
Not happy.
Not happy at all. Our source asks, want to meet the prime minister? And Zuckerberg's response is just blunt. No, I already said I definitely didn't want to do that.
Wow, just flat out refused.
Flat out. But the PM, being a politician, sees his chance, steps forward, hand outstretched.
Seizes the moment.
Exactly. And someone from the NZ delegation snaps a quick photo. Zuckerberg looks, quote, stricken, but manages a smile for the camera, then immediately goes back to being annoyed.
What do you say?
Something like, what's going on? Some of my engineers are getting pushed around.
Engineers getting pushed around. That was his concern.
Apparently, it really underlines that internal hierarchy the source mentioned. The engineers get what they want. But more than that, it's just this incredibly stark example of Facebook's priorities. Product and engineering first, diplomacy.
Right.
Maybe never.
A real clash of worlds. How did Sheryl Sandberg handle her part?
Oh, total contrast. She arrives, and it's like a celebrity entered the room, all confidence and charm. She makes small talk with our source about their upcoming wedding, talks about her own vacation plans in New Zealand.
So very polished.
Very polished. But according to the source, completely lacking in substance. The PM's team had hoped to talk tech policy, innovation. None of that happened. It was all appearance, no real engagement.
Okay, so the NZ visit reveals a lot about internal priorities. Then there was the German minister's visit, which sounds like it hit different kinds of problems.
Yeah, moving from New Zealand to Germany, the issues got heavier, deeper into that policy minefield. Germany was different. Because of their history, the Stasi, the Gestapo, there was this fundamental suspicion of data collection.
Right, a very different cultural context around privacy.
Exactly. They didn't just see Facebook as a fun social network. They saw it as potentially a comprehensive surveillance tool.
And the office didn't help, right? The whole unfinished look.
Didn't help at all. Remember the Germans thinking it was a code violation? That just reinforced their concerns. It signaled recklessness, not innovation, to them.
So the meeting was already on shaky ground. How did it go?
It went badly. Very badly. Marn, the source's boss, seemed nervous and tried to explain Facebook's stance on free speech by using an anecdote about Germans sunbathing topless.
Oh, dear. Where was this going?
Nowhere good. And then, for reasons nobody could understand, she added, and I'm Jewish.
Wait, well, how is that relevant?
It wasn't at all. It was just baffling. A complete misread of the room, completely insensitive to the German context around privacy, speech, and history.
What was the reaction?
Absolute dead silence, unbearable tension, the source called it. Just a total communication breakdown.
Yikes. And the consequences.
Weeks later, the German government opened an official investigation into Facebook. So yeah, not good.
So these visits, these clashes, what did it tell our source about how policy actually worked or didn't work at Facebook?
It really drove home that there was no big plan, no grand ideology guiding things. The company was mostly just reacting, responding to fires like the German visit.
Just putting out fires, not really steering.
Pretty much. At one point, some of the DC policy folks, described as a cabal of DC insiders, basically cornered Marn, demanding to know, what does this company actually stand for?
A fair question, given the circumstances.
You'd think. But Marn was apparently just baffled by the question. Her response was something like, we run a website that connects people. That's what we believe in. We want more users, more profit, more growth. What else is there?
Wow. That's starkly simple.
Yeah.
And kind of dismissive of all the complexity they were facing.
Completely. It showed this massive gap between the people dealing with governments and global issues and leadership's focus, which seemed purely on the product and its expansion.
Did that confrontation lead anywhere? Did they try to define what they stood for?
Sort of. It led to the idea of a policy summit. But the motivation wasn't really deep soul-searching. It was conceived mainly to quiet the troops, give the policy team something to do, make them feel heard.
Okay, so damage control, basically. How did the summit go?
Well, our source was initially excited, hoped it could be the start of something real, a chance to proactively use Facebook for good, not just react to problems.
Right.
But it kicked off with icebreaker games and personality quizzes.
Oh boy. Not exactly grappling with the big global dilemmas then.
Not immediately, no. Eventually, they got to the task: find an issue Facebook could lead on, something positive.
What came up?
The first idea that got serious traction was supporting the military, proposed by Joel Kaplan, who had a military background.
Okay, military support. How did that land?
Our source, being the only non-American on the DC team, immediately raised a flag, pointed out that military support might not play well globally.
Right, like in countries with complicated relationships with the U.S. military or their own state forces?
Exactly. They used Vietnam as an example. The point was, a global company needs a global perspective. The idea was quietly dropped, which actually shows the value of having that diverse perspective, right? It prevented a potential blunder.
True. So if not military support, what did they land on?
Weeks later, out of the blue, Martin told our source Facebook's first big proactive initiative is going to be organ donation.
Organ donation. Where did that come from?
Not from the policy summit debates. It came directly from Sheryl Sandberg. Apparently, she had a personal connection. A friend from Harvard was a transplant surgeon.
Ah, so a personal connection drove the company's first major policy initiative.
Seems like it. It shows how much individual influence and personal networks could shape things, bypassing the formal policy discussions entirely.
So organ donation it is. How do they plan to implement it? Must be complicated.
Hugely complicated. Our source was tasked with figuring it out and immediately saw the minefield. Organ donation laws vary wildly. There are cultural and religious issues, and the massive, terrifying risk of facilitating organ trafficking.
Yeah, that's incredibly sensitive stuff. You couldn't just treat it like selling ads.
Exactly. So our source proposed a very cautious approach. Basically, just a feature to let users signal they want to be donors, maybe linking to official registries, strictly limit data collection, absolutely no matching donors to patients, no facilitating transport, keep Facebook out of the actual transaction.
They sound sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Grounded in the real-world risks. How did Sheryl react to that?
She was, according to the source, baffled. She didn't understand limiting the data. She apparently saw it as a business opportunity, a way to start collecting health data from users.
Collecting health data. Through an organ donation feature. Wow.
Yeah. And when our source tried to explain the dangers, the trafficking risks, the legal complexities of moving organs across borders, Sheryl's response was reportedly quite stunning.
What is she?
Something to the effect of, "Do you mean to tell me that if my 4-year-old was dying, I couldn't fly to Mexico and get one and put it in my handbag?"
She said that.
Yeah.
About getting an organ in a handbag.
That's the quote in the account. Well, it shows a staggering disconnect from the grim realities of the issue, doesn't it? And maybe a sense of entitlement or just naivete about how the world works outside a certain bubble.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
So massive disagreement on the approach. What about the engineers? Were they on board?
Nope. Another layer of conflict. The engineers were apparently dead set against Facebook doing any kind of advocacy. Organ donation, voting, telling people to eat vegetables. They wanted Facebook to be a neutral platform.
Why neutral? What was their reasoning?
Well, think about it from their perspective. They build tools, platforms, algorithms. They want them to be scalable, unbiased, universal. Getting into advocacy means taking sides, potentially alienating users, complicating the tech. It went against their core philosophy.
But Facebook did influence things, right? Didn't they know that?
They knew. Everyone knew. The source points to that 2010 election experiment, remember? They put a little I voted button at the top of the news feed.
Yeah.
An analysis showed it caused an extra 340,000 people to vote. That's immense power. So the stakes for any kind of advocacy initiative were sky high.
Okay, so you've got the cautious policy person, the business opportunity health data boss, and the resistant engineers. What happens next?
Sheryl really wanted this big, splashy launch. Specifically, she wanted a megaphone, like a huge pop-up message dominating the screen, pushing organ donation.
Aggressive.
Very. And she tells our source, send an email to the whole team, including Mark Zuckerberg, announcing this megaphone plan. And get this, frame Sheryl's arguments as if it's my own.
Wow, asking them to basically ghostwrite an argument they disagree with to the CEO.
Exactly. Our source tried to push back, argue against the megaphone, but failed, so they had to send the email.
When did this showdown happen?
While Sheryl was traveling, apparently on a private jet, our source sends the email, and Mark Zuckerberg replies immediately with, quote, Withering attacks.
Attacking the megaphone idea.
Yes. Defending the neutral platform idea, saying Facebook should never use Facebook's voice for advocacy,
Yeah.
basically siding with the engineers.
And Cheryl, on the plane.
Radio silence. Later, she apparently claimed the jet had no Wi-Fi, but the source heard from others who were on the same jet that there was Wi-Fi.
Convenient technical difficulties.
Seems possible, but the final word came directly from the top. Mark Zuckerberg sent a separate direct email just to our source.
What did it say?
4 words, I am overruling you.
Ouch. Concise and definitive.
Absolutely. The end of the megaphone idea. And just a crystal clear demonstration of where the ultimate power lay. It wasn't with the COO. It wasn't with the policy team trying to navigate global complexities. It was with Zuckerberg and his core vision of the platform.
So looking back at this whole journey, from the day one laptop confusion to the organ donation saga, what's the big picture?
I think this deep dive really shows a company, even one with Facebook's massive reach, profoundly struggling to figure itself out, to define its purpose beyond just growth and engineering.
Yeah, it wasn't some grand unified strategy driving things, was it?
Not at all. Decisions seemed often driven by personality, by internal power dynamics, by who at the CEO's ear, by personal connections, less by careful ethical debate or a coherent global strategy. It was often reactive, sometimes chaotic.
We went from this initial optimism, this idea of shaping global policy for good.
Right, that initial vision.
The harsh realities of corporate power, the culture clashes, the engineers versus policy, Zuckerberg's singular focus. It's a picture of a company kind of stumbling into its global influence, maybe.
Stumbling, or maybe just relentlessly pursuing its internal logic, its engineering-first philosophy, and letting the external consequences just happen. That engineers get what they want line seems pretty key to understanding the whole dynamic. Their priorities often shape the reality far more than the policy team's efforts.
So it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does it mean when these incredibly powerful global platforms that shape how billions communicate and get information, what does it mean when they're run without this really clear, consistent, globally minded philosophy?
Yeah, what happens when the engineers get what they want dictates outcomes with massive real-world impact. Or when a pet project from a senior exec based on a personal connection suddenly becomes global policy.
And who's ultimately responsible? When the power to influence elections or health decisions or public discourse rests with just a handful of people, maybe operating from within their own specific bubble, without fully grasping the complexities of the world they're reshaping, what kind of accountability should there be for the rules of the road they end up setting, intentionally or not?
That's the big question, isn't it? What are the real responsibilities of companies that wield that kind of power, and how do we, as a society, ensure those responsibilities are met?